Could Nikola Motors be bought out by Iveco? This is a question I recently got on one of my videos, which is indeed a very valid question if you're a shareholder in Nikola Motors. Iveco is one of the biggest independent stakeholders in the Nikola Motors business, and it's a good question to wonder whether or not this company could be bought out by Iveco as a whole over the next 2 years, which could obviously result in a lot of shareholder value creation. And that's exactly what we're going to address in this video. But as usual, guys, before we get into it, make sure to drop me a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. So the first thing we want to address is, why would Nikola get bought out by Iveco? Now, for those that don't know, Iveco is one of the largest shareholders of Nikola at around 6%. Now, CNH Industrial is actually the parent company of Iveco, which owns a lot of other businesses and brands in Europe. And Iveco is essentially the Italian brand of this corporation that sells trucks in Europe and in Asia. The trucks look something like this, which obviously is the S-Way, which is the latest natural gas and diesel truck platform that was launched in Europe. Now, obviously, the Nikola tray is based off this platform, and although they look very similar on the front, they are actually extremely different technologies inside, which is obviously pretty obvious because of the fact that the tray is electric and these are internal combustion engine. And it seems like some folks still don't understand that. The Iveco S-Way chassis is what the Nikola tray shares, but everything else, the powertrain, drivetrain, control electronics, e-axle, are all Nikola proprietary technologies that they optimize, test, and validate in-house. And that is obviously where the hard part is when it comes to developing an EV. Now, what are the reasons Iveco would want to buy out Nikola? Well, first things first, Nikola already has the head start in the US market for electric trucks. We already know that. But chances are in 2023, they could also have the head start for fuel cell trucks, not only in Europe, but also in the US. And as we already know, Nikola already has a joint development plant in Germany with the Iveco name on it, which means that Iveco already has a lot of foothold in the way that Nikola's operations in Europe are going to take place, which is going to be very important for Nikola to succeed because they need the leverage and the expertise and networks that a company like Iveco has in Europe, which is going to allow them to gain market share much more rapidly than if they were starting completely independently. And secondly, a big reason Iveco could be buying out Nikola is if there is enough shareholder interest in the stock, and if revenue is something that investors in the US really like. Now, obviously, Iveco is not going to potentially buy out Nikola at prices like this right now, because the demand from the rest of the market just isn't there, and potentially there's a lot more appreciation that this market can see, and obviously there's more execution we need to see from Nikola themselves. But if you look at CNH Industrial's own balance sheet and compare it to Nikola's enterprise value, it is fully possible for Iveco to buy out Nikola. As you can see, Iveco's parent company reported revenues of $4.6 billion in the first quarter, with around $9.3 or $9.4 billion in cash and cash equivalents sitting as of the end of March. And if we look at Nikola's enterprise value, as you can see, it's sitting at only $1.66 billion. Now, why is the enterprise value less than the market cap? Well, because Nikola has some cash on hand, and they right now have basically no debt on the balance sheet. And for those that don't know, enterprise value essentially adds the cash that the company has to the market cap and subtracts the debts. Because obviously, if a company is going to get bought out, the company that buys them out is going to get some cash, but they obviously have to pay off all the debts of that company. And so that puts Nikola in a good position, because you always want to have your enterprise value be less than your market cap. And because of that, right now, the valuation looks pretty cheap for something like Iveco to buy it out. But the reality is that obviously in the long term, there is a lot of appreciation that can happen in Nikola stock. So it might not be in the best interest for Iveco's board of directors and executives to take on this action to buy out Nikola just yet. And why would that be the case? Well, the simple answer is that Nikola just isn't mature enough right now to be able to get acquired by another company. But Nikola is definitely on the right path to be an acquisition target. And these are the three main reasons why. You see, first of all, in the long term, Nikola could definitely get a dominant market segment in the US or in Europe when it comes to EV trucks, because they have that first mover advantage. And obviously, as we've seen with something like Tesla, it's not easy to replicate a first mover advantage because of the S-curve growth of adoption when it comes to new technologies. And secondly, obviously, we are not really seeing bad operating trends when it comes to Nikola. Nikola is executing at an extremely high level right now. So the management team of Nikola doesn't necessarily have an inclination to sell the company to somebody else if their position right now is so good for them to be able to execute by themselves, because obviously it keeps the shareholders' interests in check. And third, obviously, we're not really seeing any talks about the current management leaving their positions. Mark Russell recently actually hired the now Nikola president, Michael Loskeller. And so because of that, I have very big confidence that the management team right now in Nikola is quite confident in their ability to execute on this plan. And obviously, since we haven't even realized revenue right now, and 2022 is going to be a very low revenue year for Nikola, it's very easy to see why this company could not get bought out just yet. But obviously, there is also some reasons Nikola could be bought out within the next 24 months. So let's address those next. You see, the first reason would be that Iveco right now owns only around 11% of the entire medium and heavy commercial market in Europe as of 2020. Now, this is both good and bad. This is good in the sense that Nikola has a big partner who is already in the top 4 of all trucks sold in Europe, which means that this company is on the right track for execution in Europe. But secondly, this also creates a big fuel for Iveco to continue eating up more market share by acquiring and doing inartificial growth, essentially meaning they don't want to actually grow their business normally. Instead, they want to acquire other businesses and grow from that point, not only by headcount, but also in terms of revenue growth and obviously market share. And the big thing is that right now we are seeing a lot of companies enter the hydrogen and EV space for the trucking side. Mercedes and Daimler already have a fantastic trial program going on with one of their trucks, which is the Gen H2. And we've already seen some nice trials with this specific unit, even though, yes, this is the cab-over version, which is likely not going to have the same amount of range as the Nikola 2 or potentially even the Nikola Tre FCEV that we have in the US. But regardless, this is a right step in the right direction. And so Iveco in the US or in Europe is going to be affected by this, and they're going to want to keep their market advantage and their market share. And because of that, they might decide to accelerate the growth into the EV sector by acquiring Nikola. Secondly, we also have Hyundai coming out with their Exient fuel cell, which is actually the first mass production fuel cell truck in the entire world, which is already launched in Asia and is also now entering Europe, which is obviously going to be a massive threat to somebody like Iveco. But the good thing is that this is actually not a semi-truck. Instead, this is a box truck that is already bolted on to this frame. And so the market could give Iveco a little bit more of an advantage because obviously the Nikola Tre and the Tre FCEV are going to be semi-trucks, which have a little bit more of a bigger market and a better value proposition when it comes to that hydrogen and EV powertrain. But regardless, those are the main reasons I see Iveco buying out Nikola. There is a lot of good reasons for both the bull case and the bear case. But the reality is that in the short term, whatever the decision may be, it's not really going to affect Nikola's business all that much. Because at the end of the day, Iveco already has a great partner in hand, and Nikola is executing at a very high level, which means that both companies are really happy with the position they're in, and it doesn't really make sense to hinder the growth of one or the other by doing an acquisition in the middle of a pivotal moment for Nikola Motors. Now, by 2024, when the Nikola 2 is launched, there is some chance of this buyout happening, because by that time we will have the fuel cell and the battery powertrains already validated and in customers' hands, and I'm sure that is something Iveco's management team wants to see. And following that, I'm sure Iveco CEO also wants to see the 25 e-trucks actually be delivered to the Hamburg port in Germany, as they agreed upon back in September of 2021 through an MOU. And so again, that is going to be a critical catalyst that's going to enter Iveco into the EV market, which in turn should open some doors for this acquisition to potentially take place. But as usual, guys, make sure to drop me a thumbs up if you found some value from this video. Let me know down in the comment section below if you guys think this is a real thing for Nikola in the next 12 months. Could Nikola get actually bought out by Iveco? And what are the interests for you as a shareholder? Do you want Nikola to get bought out and the stock to potentially go private, which means that the value of the stock could be bought out at, let's say, $20 a share, and that's exactly what you would get paid. And so any appreciation over that is no game, meaning you will not get those profits. So let me know down in the comment section below what your guys' thoughts are. And as usual, guys, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Take care.